Hi, I'm Madison, and living with my family felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and everything would fall apart. I shared a house with my mother, my older brother Jack, and his wife Mary. From the outside, we might seem like the perfect family, but behind closed doors, it was a different story, one filled with tension, silent battles, and unspoken resentment. Jack was the favorite son, the pride of our family. With his prestigious title and high-paying job, he was the embodiment of success. My mother doted on him, presenting him as the shining example of what a son should be. Mary, his ever-commanding wife, played her role to perfection, always appearing understanding, always knowing just what to say. But beneath her polished surface, she only added to the division in our home. And then there was me, the one holding it all together but rarely acknowledged. I ran the household, kept track of the bills, and made sure my mother was comfortable, yet my efforts seemed invisible. One day, my mother made an offhand comment that cut deeper than I could ever imagine. "Living with Jack and Mary sounds better for you," she said casually. At that moment, it became clear, no matter how much I contributed emotionally or financially, I would always be the forgotten one. The one who did the work but never got praise. The one who sacrificed, but whose sacrifices were never acknowledged. But if there's one thing life has taught me, it's that strength comes from adversity. A life-altering change occurred during my sophomore year of college. Everything changed when my father became seriously ill, and our family was thrown into chaos. His condition required constant care, and it didn't take long for us to realize that my mother, who had never been the best at handling responsibilities, couldn't do it alone. We hired caregivers, but they could only do so much. The gaps in care were glaring, and someone had to step up. That person was me. Between running to my classes and coming home, I found myself juggling two lives, one as a student trying to keep up with coursework and another as a caregiver ensuring my father's comfort. The weight of responsibility was suffocating, but I could not let him suffer. There were nights when I barely slept, trying to balance homework with nightly visits to my father. I started skipping social events and study sessions, knowing that if I wasn't there, he might not get the attention he needed. Then, a terrifying thought hit me. What would happen when I graduated? Once I started working, how would I continue to care for him? Uncertainty loomed over me like a storm cloud. Desperate for a solution, I began to look for alternatives. I delved into online business models, hoping to find a way to make money without being tied down to a job. Suddenly, my economics classes became more than just theory, they became tools for survival. I spent hours researching, trying out different ideas, and learning everything I could about financial independence. At first, progress was slow, but with time, determination, and countless sleepless nights, I began to see results. For the first time in my life, I saw a glimmer of freedom, a path where I was not just the forgotten member of the family, but someone capable of creating a future on my terms. My story is not just about struggles, it's about resilience. It's about finding strength when the world sees you as weak. And above all, it's about proving that sometimes, those who are underestimated are the ones who rise the most. I joined some friends who knew a lot about business and technology. Together, we started a small online business. While most of my team worked from an office, I chose to work from home so I could be close to my father. At first, things were slow, but over time, our business began to grow. I was able to make money and help with household expenses. One day, while helping my father with his medications, he looked at me with a warm smile. "Madison," he softly said, "you have sacrificed so much for this family. You have become a responsible and hardworking woman. I am proud of you." His words touched my heart. It was not often that someone noticed my efforts, but hearing that from him made all the long nights and hard days worth it. Although my life took a different path than I had planned, starting an online business allowed me to support my family in ways I never thought possible. It was not the future I envisioned, but it became a journey of strength and growth. Although others in my family did not always see my efforts, my father's words reminded me that my sacrifices were not in vain. My brother Jack, the favorite son, had always been considered the pride of our family. He was smart, determined, and went to a top-tier university. He quickly landed a well-paying job, and my mother never missed an opportunity to praise him. While I stayed home taking care of our father and building my business, he was living his dream in the city. He barely reached out, distancing himself as if we didn't exist anymore. This was especially painful for my father, who had worked hard to support Jack through school, making sure he had everything he needed. But instead of being grateful, Jack just disappeared from our lives. When my father's health started to get worse, we needed all the support we could get, but Jack was nowhere to be found. Then, out of the blue, he called us. After years of silence, he shocked us. But he didn't call to ask about us or our father. Instead, he asked for $120,000 as a wedding gift. His request was unbelievable. He had been missing for so long, ignoring us, and now he wanted a large sum of money. My mother, always out of her love for him, hesitated, but didn't say no right away. She still saw him as her perfect son, even though he had abandoned us when we needed him the most. My mother defended Jack's request, saying it was a parent's duty to help their child start a new life. Her words infuriated my father. He had been listening silently, but now his voice was shaking with anger and sadness. "Why should we give him anything?" he asked. "He abandoned us. He never cared, and now he expects us to pay for his wedding." The disappointment in his voice was clear. My father had always been proud of Jack's success, but this betrayal shattered that pride. My mother tried to argue, saying that helping Jack would bring the family closer, but my father was not convinced. "Madison has been here every day, taking care of this family while Jack disappeared without a word. And now he wants money? He doesn't deserve a cent," he said firmly. His usually calm tone was now filled with pain. The argument left the house tense. For the first time, my father openly acknowledged everything I had done for the family. Jack's selfishness had not only broken his trust, but also revealed how fragile our family had become. His actions left a deep scar that would never fully heal. My father's passing was sudden and devastating. One morning, I went to see him, only to find him unresponsive. Panic set in as I called an ambulance, but it was too late. The man who had been my rock, my confidant, and the only one who truly saw my worth was gone. The pain was unbearable. But I knew I had to stay strong. I had to give him a proper send-off. When the funeral preparations began, I quickly realized I was alone. My mother, who should have been there, seemed distant. Instead of crying, she sat on her phone, scrolling through social media as if nothing had happened. "You take care of it, Madison." "I'm too overwhelmed," she said casually. His indifference hurt, but I moved on, determined to honor my father's memory. The day of the funeral, a surprise arrived. Jack and his wife, Mary, walked in as if they were attending a party instead of a funeral. Jack strolled casually, drawing attention to themselves for all the wrong reasons. Mary, dressed in flashy clothes, wore a smug expression, making people uncomfortable. While others had come to pay their respects, Jack acted as if he had done nothing wrong. But worse, my mother greeted him with a warm smile, as if nothing had happened. Her ability to ignore his betrayal, even on the day of my father's funeral, was something I would never understand. "I'm glad you're here, Jack," my mother said, her voice unusually cheerful given the situation. Then, to my surprise, she added, "Now we can talk about your father's legacy." The atmosphere in the room instantly changed. The guests who had come to cry were now witnessing a family argument unfolding right in front of them. Jack, who never missed an opportunity, spoke out loud. "I honestly don't think Madison should expect anything. She's been living off of Dad this whole time." His words were filled with sarcasm, and I could feel the weight of everyone's gazes on me. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to remain quiet. This was supposed to be a day to honor my father, not a battleground for greed. My mother, completely ignoring the inappropriateness of this conversation, added, "Your father's money belongs to the family, and as his eldest son, Jack deserves the lion's share." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father had worked his whole life to provide for us, and now his legacy was reduced to nothing more than a fight over money. I looked at the guests. Some looked away awkwardly, while others whispered amongst themselves, clearly uncomfortable with what was happening. Jack, feeling supported by my mother, turned to me. It's been a burden, Madison. It's only fair that I get what is mine. Mary, standing next to him, nodded with a smug smile. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This is not the time or place for this discussion, I said firmly. We are here to honor Dad, not to argue about the inheritance. Jack scoffed, but didn't insist further. My mother, however, seemed upset, as if I had ruined her moment. After a few seconds, Jack leaned towards my mother and whispered something to her. Then, without a word of respect for my father's memory, he, Mary, and my mother left the funeral early, leaving me alone to take care of everything they had so carelessly interrupted. As I stood by my father's casket, a mix of emotions washed over me, deep sadness at losing the only person who truly cared for me and burning anger at the selfishness that had tainted his final farewell. It was clear my family was beyond repair, and I was left to pick up the pieces alone. But if there was one thing my father had taught me, it was resilience. No matter how broken things seemed, I would move on. I would honor his memory, building a life on my terms, no matter how difficult the road ahead. The fight over the inheritance didn't end there. After the funeral, Jack made his claim loud and clear. This house belongs to me, he declared, standing in the living room as if he already owned it. As the oldest son, it's my birthright, he added, his voice full of confidence. Beside him, Mary sat in agreement, wearing her usual smug expression. My mother sat on the couch without saying anything. Her silence spoke more than 1,000 words. She wasn't going to stop him. I took a deep breath, holding back my anger. For years, I had been the one holding this home together. I had taken care of my father when no one else would. I had paid the bills, handled the responsibilities, and made sure our house kept running. And yet, there Jack was, missing for years, suddenly demanding what he thought was owed to him. It would have been ridiculous if it wasn't so infuriating. Jack, I said, my voice calm but firm, this house doesn't belong to you. Neither does it belong to Mom. Legally, it's mine. The room fell silent. Jack's confident smile disappeared, and even Mary looked momentarily surprised. What are you talking about? Jack finally asked, his voice full of disbelief. I'm talking about the fact that Dad transferred this house into my name before he died, I replied, standing my ground. He put it in my name because he knew I was the one taking care of it. And I was rooting for this family. Jack's face turned red with anger. That's impossible, he yelled. Why would he do that? You don't even have a real job. You've just been here like a burden. My hands were shaking, but I refused to let it get to me. A burden? I repeated. You have no idea how much money I've put into this house while you were out living your life in the city. While you were ignoring us, I was here, taking care of Dad, paying the bills, keeping this house running. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to stand up for me, to acknowledge what she had done. But she didn't even look me in the eyes. Her silence hurt more than Jack's words. I pulled myself together and continued. In case you forgot, I said, my voice unwavering, Dad's savings ran out a long time ago, mostly because of Mom's expenses. After that, I stepped in. I've been giving $5,000 every month to support this household. Dad knew that I was the only one that could be trusted. That's why he made sure that this house stayed in my name. As I spoke, memories flooded my mind. I remembered the day my father told me about the transfer. His voice was weak, but his words were filled with certainty. Madison, he had said, I want to make sure that you are safe. You have done so much for this family, and I trust that you will do the right thing. His words had given me strength then, and they gave me strength now. But Jack wasn't ready to back down. This isn't fair, he yelled. I'm the oldest son. I deserve this house. What kind of family betrays their blood? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Betrayal? I repeated, shaking my head. You abandoned us for years. You didn't even care about Dad when he was sick. The only betrayal here is you showing up now, thinking you can take what doesn't belong to you. Mary, clearly uncomfortable, pulled on Jack's arm and whispered something I couldn't hear. Finally, my mother spoke in a low, hesitant voice. Madison, maybe we should share the house. It's what your father would have wanted. I shook my head with firmness. No, Mom. Dad left me this house because he trusted me. You and Jack have only shown selfishness, and I will not allow you to take advantage of me anymore. Your betrayal only made my decision clear. This house was not just a building, it was a symbol of my father's trust and my years of sacrifice. I was not going to let it fall into the hands of people who only remembered family when it suited them. For the first time in years, I felt free, strong, and ready to take control of my own life. After years of giving, sacrificing, and getting nothing in return, I finally made the decision that would change everything. I was standing in the living room, surrounded by people who had taken me for granted. I faced my mother, Jackie, and Mary. Their faces were a mix of shock and disbelief as I spoke. I've had enough, I said firmly. I have supported this family for years, and all I have received in return is disrespect and betrayal. I'm done. I'm leaving this house and cutting all ties with you. Jack scoffed, leaning back in her chair. Where will you go, Madison? You've always been here, playing martyr. I looked him in the eyes without hesitation. That's where you're wrong, I said. I've been planning this for a long time. I'm going to sell the house and move abroad. I have no reason to stay here, surrounded by people who only see me as a burden. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't sell this house. It's been in our family for years. I shook my head. It hasn't been our home for a long time, I replied coldly. It became mine when Dad transferred ownership to me. He trusted me to take care of it, and now I'm deciding to let it go. The room fell silent. Jack and Mary exchanged nervous glances, while my mother seemed to want to argue, but had no words left. That night, I began to pack my things. As I folded laundry and packed up memories, a wave of emotions washed over me. I thought about all the nights I had stayed up late, balancing my studies while taking care of my father, only to find myself ignored and unappreciated. But now, it didn't matter. I was finally choosing myself. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. I thought of my father's words, the few moments of encouragement that had kept me going. Then, I remembered all the times my mother and Jack had taken me for granted. Their selfishness had hurt me deeply year after year. But as much as the bitterness lingered, something else was growing inside me: relief. I was getting my life back, a life that had been overshadowed by their expectations and demands. For the first time, I felt a spark of hope. A future that was mine to shape. I finalized the sale of the house through my uncle, the only family member who had always silently supported me. He understood why I was leaving and promised to take care of everything. Once the sale was complete, I booked a one-way ticket to a tropical location I had always dreamed of visiting. This was my chance to start over, away from the toxic environment I had endured for so long. As I closed the door for the last time, I felt a strange mix of sadness and freedom. This house had been both my burden and my strength. But it no longer defined me. When I left, I was not only leaving a house behind, I was leaving behind a family that had never valued me. This was my new beginning, and I was ready for it. With the weight of my old life off my back, I boarded the plane. The moment I arrived, I was greeted by a warm sun, a gentle sea breeze, and an infinite blue sky. It felt like entering a new world, one full of possibilities. The first few weeks were an adjustment. I rented a small apartment close to the beach, with large windows that let in the sound of the waves. My mornings began with fresh fruit and coffee on the balcony, watching the sunrise over the ocean. It was nothing like the tense and suffocating home I had left behind. Here I felt peace, something I hadn't known in years. I slowly settled into a routine. My days were spent working on my online business, which gave me the freedom to live on my terms. The afternoons were for exploring, wandering through colorful markets, trying exotic foods, and meeting people from all walks of life. The locals were friendly and welcoming. Their laid-back lifestyle taught me an important lesson. Life is not meant to be rushed. It's meant to be enjoyed. One afternoon, as I walked along the seashore, the setting sun painted the water in golden hues. I stood still, absorbing the beauty around me, and let my mind wander back to everything that had happened. The pain of my past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled me. I had learned important lessons about strength, self-esteem, and the power of setting boundaries. For years, I had lived for others. Now, I was finally living for myself. I had given up my dreams to support a family that never truly appreciated me. But those sacrifices had made me stronger. They had transformed me into someone who could stand on my own. My father's trust in me had been a small spark of light in the darkness, but it changed everything. It reminded me that I was worth more than the way they had treated me. His faith in me gave me the courage to finally break free. I was now embracing my independence, building a life where I was in control. The struggles I had faced had taught me something important. I deserved to be happy. I learned to put myself first and to surround myself with people who truly respected and valued me. For the first time, the future didn't scare me. I was excited. Standing on the beach, watching the waves come to shore, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. I was grateful. Grateful for the strength I had found. Grateful for the opportunities given to me. I was looking forward to this beautiful new chapter in my life. Life had tested me in ways I never imagined. But I had come out stronger. This was my new beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take me. In my old life, the collapse of my family was inevitable. Jack, Mary, and my mother had always lived beyond their means, and I had quietly covered their expenses. Their reckless choices eventually caught up with them. I didn't keep in touch, but my uncle, who had always been a silent observer, would share updates occasionally. It wasn't long before their lavish lifestyle crumbled under the weight of their mounting debts. Jack and Mary, once so confident and proud, were evicted from their home after I sold it. They ended up in a small, cramped apartment in the city, struggling to make ends meet. Their savings quickly ran out, and they had to take part-time jobs just to pay for their basic needs. Meanwhile, my mother, who once enjoyed endless shopping trips and expensive outings, was forced to live frugally. Debt collectors came calling. Their calls became more and more aggressive. The life they had built on illusion and entitlement was crumbling. Desperate to stay afloat, they borrowed money from risky lenders, but that only made things worse. Each bad decision dragged them deeper into a financial hole. Their once close relationships turned into bitter feuds as they blamed each other for their situation. The proud family that once dismissed me, the one that made me feel invisible, was now barely holding together. As for me, I felt nothing for them anymore. I had no desire to go back. No need to save them. My uncle would sometimes call, his voice filled with silent disappointment at their choices, but he never asked too many questions. Their struggles were the consequences of their actions, and I had no intention of being dragged back into their chaos. I had moved on. I had chosen myself. And for the first time in my life, that choice felt right. I often thought about the irony of it all. The same people who had mocked me for staying home and working in silence were now struggling to survive. But I felt no joy in their downfall. It was not about revenge. Instead, I felt a bittersweet sense of closure. For years, I had offered my help, only to be met with coldness and betrayal. Now, they were facing the consequences of their choices, while I was finally free, living a life full of peace and purpose. Walking along the seashore of my new home, feeling the warm sand beneath my feet, I realized something important. I had no regrets. My journey had been filled with struggles, but it had led me to strength and independence. The downfall of my family was their doing. And for the first time in my life, I was truly at peace, focused on my own happiness and the brighter days that lay ahead.